Today, we're going to be creating this website in Figma from design to development. Even if you're a beginner and you don't understand how Figma works, this video was actually made for you in mind because I'm going to be showing how to design in Figma even if you're an absolute beginner. I've been getting a whole lot of comments from my last Figma tutorial from people who are asking me for a part 2 of the Figma video I started. So instead of updating random part 2 when people didn't key into the part 1, I came up with a better plan, which is what you're about to experience. So if you're ready, there's a Remix link in the description for you to follow along as we comment in the tutorial. The very first step in getting started with this tutorial or as a beginner is to first have a Figma account. If you don't have one, you can head up right now to Figma.com to sign up for a free account, and I'll be waiting for you inside of Figma to show you how Figma interface works. Before we start designing, I want to walk you through exactly what you'll be able to achieve by the end of this tutorial. I've broken this website down into 4 sections. The first one is the hero section. I'm going to be showing you exactly how you can replicate and design everything you're seeing here, including this typewriting effect displaying different text. As I'm scrolling through this section, you can see the effect that is taking shape on this UI design. So it's more like the design it's filling in upon scrolling. Going to the second section, this is where the fun begins to happen. You can see this cool effect happening on this text. It's more like the text is helping us to read and digest as we are scrolling. Figma is used to design and publish websites or develop websites without writing a single line of code. But you agree with me that there are some effects we can't just apply inside of all effects inside of Figma. So to solve that, we simply use code override by writing lines of code to achieve effects that is not accustomed inside of Figma. And I know you might be thinking, oh, we are going to be writing codes, but I'm going to burst your bubbles because I don't know how to code, and possibly you don't know how to code. So most of the codes that we are going to be doing are practically going to be outsourced. All you have to do is just to copy and paste instead of a code override, and it's going to apply in real time. As we're scrolling on this section, you will notice something. If you notice anyway, you will see that this avatar and this name is fixed to a particular position when we are making a scroll. So the name of this effect is called sticky positioning or sticky effect, where we place a particular element in a sticky or fixed position while everything else around it moves like a normal frame. So it only ends until the end of the frame has elapsed or until we have scrolled out of the section. Going to the third section, this is a little bit tricky, but I think I can explain things for you to understand better on how I achieve this. So I use sticky position in this case in placing this 1, 2, 3 cards in a sticky position. So let me play everything that's happening here. This first card, when we are making a scroll, stays at the top section or in a fixed state until the second card meets it at that same position. Then the second card also waits for the third card to meet it at that same position, then everything scrolls away. Going back to this third section, I bet you didn't notice this effect, which is at the top, which is called a loader effect. So it only applies when we get to this section. So as these cards are in a sticky position or doing their thing in a sticky state, this loader effect, it's loading until we have reached the end of this frame. So I only applied this on this particular third section. I achieved this with a code override. Bet me, I don't even know how to code. I don't know what coding languages are. But with Figma, anything is possible. Then going to the last section, there's nothing complex happening here. It's simply the same effect I placed on the logos that you are seeing here. So I just had to place that on this UI to move in an infinite motion. So yeah, this is everything we are going to be covering in this class. I know there's one thing that is going on through your mind right now, that this whole stuff is too complex for a beginner like you to understand and achieve and also execute by the end of this tutorial. But I'm giving you my word that if you stick to this video till the end, you'll be able to achieve and know how to do the stuff that I've done right here, even if you're a complete beginner opening Figma for the first time. By now, I'm sure you already have Figma installed on your laptop. Let's move on into understanding how Figma actually works. When you open Figma, this is the first thing you see. But in case if you don't see this whole stuff right here, chill, because these are actually projects I've handled over time. The only important thing to pick out from this page is this button which says New Project, because by clicking this, it's going to open up a fresh canvas we are going to be designing on. But for this course, I've already created a new project file, which it's the one I use in designing. So if you check the remix link in the description, you will have access to this particular file. This is already designed. This is the main one I did. And for this tutorial page, this is it right here, where we are going to be starting from a fresh canvas. So this is a good standpoint to explain everything about Figma interface. To get comfortable with Figma interface, I've broken it down into 5 parts. So you have the left, you have the right, you have the top section, and this little toolbar down. So if you're a Figma designer transiting from Figma to Figma, this whole interface should look a lot familiar. So the first section here is this playground. I like to call it playground because this is going to be our canvas. So all the stuff we are going to be designing, animating, and building is going to be done right here at this canvas. Within the canvas, we have our desktop. This is more like a template that we're going to be using to design on. In this case, this is only for a desktop breakpoint. But in most cases, not in most cases, usually we'll design for 3 variants, which is for the desktop, the tablet, and for the mobile. So to bring out the remaining 2 variants, we have to click this plus to add for the tablet, and we click the tablet to add for the phone breakpoint. Now we have 3 breakpoints. We can also adjust the size of the overall breakpoint. So let's say, okay, we have a larger screen. We can change this to 1400 for larger screens. On the left hand side is our layers panel. It is broken down into 3 parts. We have pages. This is where we are going to be organizing our design. We might have a home page, an about page, a contact page. This is where all those stuff are being handled. On the second part is our layers panel. This is the most important part of our design ecosystem, because everything we are going to be designing on this canvas is going to be appearing on our layers panel. The last option here is assets. Think of assets like a library. This is where we are going to be organizing our components, vectors, external files. As you can see here, in the course of this project, these are the components I used throughout in creating this overall design. Now on the right hand side, this is called our properties panel. And you might be saying, oh, what are we looking at? What's here? Okay, these are just whatever element you have selected. So if I should select a desktop, everything, all the settings that concerns a desktop frame is going to appear here. Because as you can see, when I selected the desktop, we can see from this end, we can control the width, we can control the height. This is basically what layers panel is. It controls whatever element you have selected so far. The top section here is our tools bar. I'm going to be explaining everything because it's actually divided into 2. One on the left hand side and the other on the far right. The first one here, which is insert, this is where we can find other external things that may help us in our design process. So for the first one here, which is Wireframer, it's more like an inbuilt AI system that helps you turn your text into designs. So let's experiment it a bit. Though I don't want to create one, but let's do something real quick. So create a landing page for my school. I didn't feed it any detailed information, but by sending this off, I just wanted to see how Wireframer works. So it's going to be loading, and in real time, it will be updating real informations on our breakpoint. And this can sound as a way out simply because as a beginner, you can use this as a point of inspiration when designing, because we didn't get to touch anything and we just simply prompt. Our design is already filled with a lot of content. But most of all these stuffs are generic in the sense that I might type in what I need and it will still generate this type of content. So that's why I don't usually use Wireframer. Let me delete everything. Delete. Same thing applies here. This is where we can find more like templates that we can use in our design. We are going to be using most of all the stuffs in the course of this tutorial. For the section, you can choose the mode you want it to be in, light or dark mode. So if I want to use this section, or maybe I'm looking for something like a pricing page, I can simply drag and drop on our design canvas and everything will update in real time to other breakpoints. So the second section here is where you can assess for your frame, star, grid, and other things we are not probably going to be using in this tutorial, simply because we have shortcuts. So if I want to bring out a frame, I can simply use the shortcut F on my keyboard instead of coming to the toolbar to select a frame. Same thing applies for stack. I'm going to be showing you guys the shortcuts I use in turning things into a stack in and out. Then the next option here is to select a text. So by selecting this, I can just click on my canvas and write out anything. As you can see, I don't know where it went to. So this is it right here. So this is for the text. Let me just cancel this. Then this is for vectors. We can use vectors to create like custom icons and animations. We can discuss this later on, not probably in this tutorial, but future tutorials. Same thing applies for CMS. So CMS means Content Management System. So we mostly use this when we want to update blogs. So we don't do that manually. We just simply use CMS to update these informations by just filling out a bunch of fields. We are not going to be touching anything CMS in this particular tutorial because this is a whole lot. I actually have a video on CMS. If you want to check that out, check my wall and you will see, or I will just link it at the top of this video. At the right hand side, this is where we are going to be updating our site. Anything concerning our site optimization, this is where everything is done. So your site localization, your site setting, your analysis, this is where you can preview your site, where you can invite collaborators, and the last option here, which is to publish what you have done so far. Moving over to this extended small toolbar, this is where we're going to be doing some certain actions like to select or to move our canvas or to make a comment. This is mostly when we have collaborators in the design and want to make a little iterations in some part of our design. In case you have not subscribed to this channel, I'm going to leave a comment for you here. Click that subscribe button. So you should do that before we comment. I'm just joking. That is how you can drop comments in and out of your design. This controls dark mode and light mode. But as a designer, I just always stick to dark mode. So with this, I think I've gotten you comfortable enough for us to start some real work here. Most beginners look at website as one big complex design, and that is the point where it begins to feel overwhelming. But in reality, every website is just a collection of smaller sections all stacked together. And in Framer, we call these sections frame. Taking a look at this website, when we first started, where I showed you guys everything you'll be able to create by the end of this tutorial, I mentioned that I've divided it into 4 sections. I didn't just mention sections just because I want to break it down for you to understand. I actually designed this entire website based on sections. Taking a look at the first section, which is a hero section, all the frames that comprises of a hero section, it's tied or grouped to one frame. And taking a look at the layers panel, you can see there's a part called hero section, and inside of this hero section are all the elements that comprises or makes up these hero sections. And when you nest into the hero section, you'll find out that everything here are made up of frames. So this UI design here is a frame. Then we have a frame that is wrapping all the text. Then if we should nest deeper, you will see that there are more frames that are attached inside of frames. So websites, your whole idea of website should be frames. So you shouldn't see website like we are building it together at once. You should have this idea that a website is made up of sections inside of sections, and these sections are relatively called a frame. This then leads to the next question: what exactly is a frame? And the shortest answer I can think about that is this: a frame is simply a container. It hosts everything like your text, image, buttons. The idea you should have about frame is that a website or a design is simply framed, wrapped in a parent frame that is wrapped in a parent frame. Looking at our design, there's a frame wrapping all the individual text in the hero section. And nesting deeper into this frame is another frame holding up this particular text. And nesting deeper again, you will notice that these are just frames that links into children frames. Now let's bring out a frame. In Framer, to draw out a frame or to bring out a frame, we use the short key, which is simply F on your keyboard. Once you do that, you can just drag out something like this, or you can just simply go to the tools bar like I showed you guys when we started, to select a frame. So you can just weigh the two to know which one is shorter for you to reach when bringing out a frame. But if you ask me, hitting F on my keyboard just dishes out the frame to my canvas. Heading back to our tutorial Fresh Canvas, we are going to be bringing out a frame inside of the desktop. If you remember, the short key F on your keyboard to just drag out a frame. This then leads us to the next thing, which is resizing options. Because when designing, we don't just design freeform. Everything right here are governed by rules. On the properties panel, right here, we can see that we have 4 resizing options, and I'll be explaining how you can use them and when not to use them. The first option here, which is absolute position, this is where we can position frames or layers freely in reference to their parent frame. For relative, this is where the position is determined by the flow of content in a stack or grid. Moving to phase, this is where the position of the layer is fixed to a viewport. Then the last one, which is sticky, this is where the position of the layer switches from relative to fixed when it hits the top of the viewport and back to relative when it hits the bottom of the frame. Previewing this website, when we get to where I use sticky position, I mentioned earlier that a sticky position is when a layer switches from relative to fixed when it hits the top of the viewport, then back to relative when it hits the bottom of the frame. And that answers the interaction we are getting here. Because when this avatar and this whole stuff I set to sticky position hits the top of the section, it changes its state from relative to fixed, and that is why it stays in one position. Then it changes back to relative when it reaches the bottom or the base of the frame, which is at this point, and that's why we can be able to scroll away. Going back to the first resizing option, which is absolute, I mentioned that this is a state of where we can place a frame or a layer anywhere within the parent frame. So this frame is nested within a parent frame. This desktop is known as a parent frame, then the frame inside of it is known as a primary frame. So by setting this, it's already in absolute. By setting it to absolute, we can freely move this frame within anywhere on the parent frame. I think I've talked more about relative position because I use sticky position to also explain relative position. The last option here is fixed. So this is a type of position where we want an element to stay at a fixed position within the viewport or within the parent frame. Going back to the tutorial or the main design, this nav bar right here is in a fixed state because I want it to always, let me pivot this a sec, because I want it to always stick to the top of our section. That is why we have to change the resizing option to fixed. Now that we have looked at all the resizing options in Frema, the next thing we need to understand is stacks, because this is where layout really start to come together. A lot of beginners try to position everything manually, but in professional workflow, we rely on structure instead of random placement. And that is why we have to talk about stack before moving into the final stage of building this full website. The question here is, what is a stack? A stack is a frame with a special layout property applied to it. Looking at this navbar, you agree with me that the distance from the home text to contact us or from the contact us to the tutorial page is inconsistent. And when designing, doing all this stuff manually will kill our progress time. And the simple answer for that is stack. So by selecting this frame, going to the properties and clicking this layout, automatically turns it into a stack. You'll notice that when we turn this into a stack, the children element inside of the parent frame that was set to a stack all came together to a particular size. What are the extra properties I mentioned when defining a stack? On the properties panel, stack has already assumed that the direction of the elements inside of it is in a horizontal path, and if we choose to realign all these elements in a vertical path, a stack can also handle that. So by switching the direction to vertical, you can see all the children elements inside of the stack as taking this vertical path. Moving to the second most important aspect of a stack property is distribute. This tells where we want the children element to stay within the confined stack. And by default, when we set this frame into a stack, it assumes that the distribute is supposed to be fixed somewhere. So that is why everything came to align at the center. We can always change this. So by changing it to start, you can see it went to the left hand side. And when we change it to end, you can see we adjusted its path to the right hand side. In normal terms, we can easily would have named this maybe front or back, or maybe top or bottom. But in Figma terms or in web design terms, start and end is mostly used to define this kind of interaction. Same thing applies for the alignment. We can choose to align this to the top of the frame, to the center of the frame, or to the bottom of our frame within the stack. And if we look closer, let me just change this to center. Looking at the stack, between all those elements, we can see these pink sliders. And when we nudge these sliders, we can see it gives us the exact figures of how we have set the gap between these elements. So as for now, it's 79. So what does this tell you? That a stack is used when we want to set a particular group of elements to the same direction with consistent spacing. And if you have guessed that right, we can use stack to create a responsive design. The only reason why we can be able to scale this down and to adapt to whatever screen size we have adjusted it to is because of the stack we use throughout this design. So let's head back to our own tutorial page to show you how we can actually use stack to create a very responsive design. Hit F on your keyboard, drag out a frame. When previewing this, scaling this down to other breakpoints, you can see that the frame inside of it is not responsive. To make this responsive, you already know the answer of what we are going to be using, which is stack. We can choose to set the overall desktop to a stack. So on the properties panel, you can see this layout. So by clicking the plus, it automatically turns it into a stack. Let's change the distribute to center, and for the primary frame inside of it, we can set this from fixed to fill. So we can choose to apply a right padding of 40 and a padding of 40 on the left as well. By previewing this, you can notice how flawless the frame inside of this desktop is responsive. So this is 40 that we set on both sides of the desktop breakpoint. And when we reduce this frame to around the mobile or phone breakpoint, you can see it at the top here. See that 40 is a little bit too much for a mobile breakpoint. We can always readjust that because changes we make to the desktop applies to other breakpoints, but changes we make to the individual breakpoint doesn't apply or affect the rest breakpoint. So by setting the overall desktop here for the mobile frame to around 20, which is kind of okay for a mobile breakpoint, by reducing the width of this again, remember that this is 40, but whenever we get around where it changes to the mobile breakpoint, you can see the width on both sides has changed to 20 pieces that we confined it to. We can take this a step further by introducing a text inside of the desktop. So we can type I'm learning Figma. Let's increase the size to around change it to white, and let's introduce it inside of the desktop. We can choose, not really choose, it's mandatory that you change the width to fill. So whenever we reduce a breakpoint, it's going to be responsive. For the alignment, you can see it's aligning to the left hand side, but we can readjust that by realigning it to the center of the frame. Because we use stack, the text within this frame, when it seems like it's touching both sides of this breakpoint, is going to break into a second layer. This is it. So this is one of the reasons why I love using stack, because it just makes things effortless and responsive. With this, I've come to the conclusion that we can now start this tutorial on a good note, because the whole idea I had behind this tutorial is not to jump processes. I can show you how to apply a text, apply a button, or apply anything to make up a website. But if you don't understand the basis of how an application works, everything we are doing here only works in this particular tutorial. Because when you choose to do this on your own, you will notice that you can't actually do anything, just because you don't understand the basis of how the application works. After taking my time to show you the background of Figma, how things work in and out, it's time we move into the main focus, which is building the website. The first thing I like doing before drafting out any frame to create a website is to bring out my styles. Styles in Figma are more like design system that will help increase the efficiency when designing. Going over to assets, you will see styles at the bottom here. By clicking this, these are all different types of styles variants we can apply in Figma. We can apply variant styles on text, links, block quotes, code override, color, and CMS. But in this case, we'll be dealing on two types of styles, which is just text and color styles. But for the colors, since we are not using more than black and white or even blue, we are not going to be creating any styles on that. What I'm more concerned in are text styles. Now it depends on whatever website you are creating. We can create styles for the paragraph, heading 1, heading 2, and so on, head 2, heading 6. So for the hero section, we are going to be starting with the head text, which is going to be heading 1. So by clicking that, nothing is going to pop up just because I've already created a style for heading 1. By clicking the styles, these are all the styles I created on the main design. And since we are still on the same project file of the main design, it's going to apply to this new page we are designing on. For the heading 1, by clicking this, I'm just going to walk you through on how I was able to set this up. So let me just, I don't know if I should kind of remove this. Okay, I can't even delete it because I was thinking about deleting it to create it from scratch to show you guys how to create a heading style. But regardless, when you create a heading 1 style, this is the kind of setting you will see. For the font, you're allowed to choose whatever font you want to use on the website. For this website, throughout, I use this font called Satoshi. Next up is the weight. This is where you choose if you want the text to be light italic, or regular, or bold, and so on. This is where you handle all that. One thing we're going to be doing here is to ignore all these settings because most of them are on default. So when we create a style, all we have to do is just to change the font, the weight, and that's all we have to do. But remember when I said styles helps us to manage, if it's text styles we're using, it helps us to manage different text styles, sizes on all 3 breakpoints. So for that aspect, this is where we'll handle the breakpoint sizes of all 3 breakpoints. So for the large one, which is the main desktop, the size on it is 80. And don't move over to the medium, which is standing as the tablet. The size that is going to appear on the tablet is 64. And when this same text is on the mobile frame, which is acting as a small size, it's going to be 40. You can change this if you want this to be 20, but 40 is kind of okay for the heading 1 on the mobile frame. So this right here is one of the reasons why I like choosing text styles when designing, because you don't really have to choose different text sizes when you are creating other breakpoints, because when you create one as heading, it applies to other breakpoints. Alright, let's dive right into creating this website. The first thing we're going to be utilizing to create a responsive design is stack. Select the desktop and add a stack to it. Then we're going to be applying a frame inside of it. F on your keyboard, just drag out a frame. Set the width to fill width. Then for the height, let's go with something like 4,000. That's 4,000. You'll notice one thing, that the height of the frame inside of the desktop, it's longer than the actual frame. So to solve this, we can head on to the Vero desktop and change the height right here to fit content. This frame we just brought out is going to stand as the main frame that wrap all the section. Change this to a stack, and for the gap, change it to 0 because we don't want any gap in between the main section. We'll be naming this on the layers as main section. Then for the color, we are going to be removing that. After creating the main section, let's then bring out all the individual sections, but we'll be starting first with the hero section. So F, drag out a frame and set the width to fill. Don't worry, we'll be addressing this of why the frame went to the center of the main section. After changing it to width, we are going to change it to a stack also and change the gap to gap 0. Now on the main section, because the behavior of the frame inside of it is controlled by the parent frame, so go over to the main section and change on the distribute from center to start. Next up, we'll be preparing this hero section before we start placing layers in it. For the height, let's go with something like 1020. We'll be adding a constraint, anyone, min height, just look for min height. The other ones here, max width, min width, and max height. The min height we selected on minimum height, it simply means that since we have set 1020 as the overall height, we are going to set a minimum height that it shouldn't go below that value. But we're not going to be using a fixed state. We'll simply be using viewport because it's mostly used when we are talking about screen sizes in Breakpoint. Viewport means the amount of content that the visitor sees without scrolling. By default, 100 VH means that whatever content we're going to be placing on the hero section is going to display 100% of the content to the viewer screen, depending on whatever breakpoint you have selected. We're going to change this from 100 VH to around 80 VH. By setting it to 80 VH, it's simply saying we have set a height of 1020. Even if you should shrink the content to the viewer, do not go below 80% of the given screen size or the given element inside of it. We'll be changing the fill color of the hero section. Let's quickly change this to gradient because it's a gradient fill I use on the main design. For the first fill at the top, I've already copied the color code I used, so let me just paste it, Ctrl+V, and enter. Oh, I think I copied the wrong one. So let me just quickly copy this one, Ctrl+C, and back to the tutorial page and paste it here, Ctrl+V. Then for the other one, on the other end, Ctrl+C here and Ctrl+V. For better optimization on the search engine, we're not just designing or dragging layers to make things look beautiful. We have to optimize them for the search engine. We're going to be applying a tag to whatever thing we are designing on. Going over to the properties, click the accessibility and we'll be adding a tag. Now this tag would define whatever section we're creating. And for the hero section, the only thing that is close to what we can call it is called section. We can also add one on the overall main section, add a tag here. Then we can also call this main section because it's the main section wrapping everything else. We'll be starting with our text on the hero section. So here on your keyboard, I already have that typed out. I'll just paste it. We'll be applying a style to it. Remember we said this dies text dies before we started designing. Go over to the properties down the text section and add a style. Then for the heading, since it's the hero section, we are simply going to be using this heading 1. So Ctrl X to cut it, then paste it inside of the hero section, Ctrl+V. Since these two texts here are different, one is a component that is displaying that text animation, while the other one is another text. Since they are different types, we can't join them together when spelling out the words. So we are going to be creating them differently, then join them or stack them up in a stack. I'll be copying this text component so we don't have to come back here to copy and redirect back to the tutorial page. So Ctrl+C, and let's head to the tutorial and paste it inside of our page. For the second text, let's make a copy of this one and change it on the properties to modern. That's what I use. It's all this mapped out. We don't want our text to be in a horizontal path, so we can change that because of the stack we have applied on the hero section. Go over to the properties and change the direction to vertical. Remember that this modern and this creative text are in a horizontal path, and now since we changed that to a vertical path, everything inside of the hero section has taken that direction. To fix that, we have to restack things up. So select the modern and select the subtext and stack it up in a stack, if that makes sense. So right click on your keyboard and add a stack. We can then change the direction back to horizontal since we want it to be in a horizontal path. Let's add a little gap between these two texts because it's too close at this point. So let's just increase it to something like 30. Cool. To tidy up things here, we are going to be grouping this A automation and the second line to a stack. So select the first line and select the second one we just grouped in a stack and regroup again in another stack. So right click and add a stack. On the layers panel, let's rename this because I like keeping my layers panel neat. But if you're that type lazy designer that doesn't like renaming layers, I think Figma has something for you. So right click on the layers panel and you'll see auto rename. This might not do a lot of justice to rename layers accurately, but at least it's giving you that vibe of keeping your layer section clean. Next up is to add our subtext. I wouldn't want to waste so much time on this. So I'll just go to the main design and copy the text that I have here. Head to the tutorial, T on your keyboard and paste what we just copied. We'll be applying a style to it. So go over to the text, apply a body style. Let's just go over with 20. I think that's what I use. We'll be applying a color right here. Change it to white and reduce the opacity to around 80% because the subtext, we don't want that much attention on it. If you notice, our subtext is looking kind of weird because it's long, and usually subtext should fold into maybe like 2 or 3 lines. We can always fix that. I'll be showing you 2 ways I can go about this, because to fold this, we don't have the ability to like maybe crank the text to a second line or something because it's in a stack. That's why we can really control the text right here. The first option, you guess that right, is grow. This option called grow on the properties panel. I'm going to change this to auto height. Then we can use our slider to fold it into whatever line that we want. Now this option, I don't usually use it simply because it's not really giving me that vibe of responsiveness. It's okay on other breakpoint, but you can see something is off on the mobile breakpoint. This is not what we want. We always want it to fill the width of the given frame. This then leads to the second option, the best one that you can use in this case. Let's quickly remove this glue that we applied here. For the second option, we are applying a constraint called max width. For the subtext, for responsiveness, it's supposed to fill the width of the desktop or the frame. So let's change the width of the text to fill. But before that, let me change it to fix so you guys can see the value of what it is, 1200, and change it back to fill. So with this, by adding a max width, we are going to set a value to crank the size of the subtext to fold into lines. This means since it takes 1200 to fill the hero section, we can set a max width of like 500 or so, 700 thereabout. So in this way, it will then limit the text growth, which will then make it to fold into 3 or 4 lines. Change this to fixed and let's crank this down a little bit. Now around 800, you can see that the text is beginning to fold into a second line. This is what I'm just trying to explain. So I think I'm good with around 627. And when we take a look at the auto breakpoint, you can see it's way better than what we had before when it was going outside of the frame. I know some of you might be having this question to why do we have this text at the center of the hero section? Because we have this huge white space at the top that we would not want. So to address this, you know where to go, the hero section, go over to the stack layout. You can see the distribute right here set to center. We address that and set it to start. This is where we'll be applying a padding to kind of centralize things up. So apply a padding of like, let's go with 160. This is what I usually use. Yep. So 160 is kind of better because we'll be applying a nav bar, which will also take more like 60 pixels upward. So this is kind of okay. Then for the auto breakpoint, this is what we're going to do, because if we are designing on this place and checking other breakpoint to make sure it's optimized, we'll waste a lot of time. So we are going to be designing and make sure everything is set on the hero section, on the main desktop before moving full time into optimizing the rest breakpoints. I think this will work. Yeah. So we're going to group the subtext and the overall head stack that we grouped a while ago. So select both of them, hold down shift, select, right click and add a stack. We can then apply a gap on the properties panel to separate this subtext a bit from the head text. Let's go with something like 14. Yeah, this will do. The last thing on this hero section, normally the last thing is to apply a button. Let's do this outside of our design, then we can then apply them inside of the hero section. Turn your keyboard and write out get started. Let's zoom in a little bit to see what we are doing. We'll be wrapping this text in a stack. So right click and add a stack. Next up is to apply a padding and background fill to create a perfect button. We'll be applying a padding of 12 at the top, 12 at the bottom, then 24 on all sides, on both right and left. So 24 here and 24.
You might not really see what we are doing here. Let's apply a background fill and let's paste this color code I just copied from somewhere. So for the text, let's change it to black because it's not really visible at this point. Yeah. Now the padding that we applied, we cannot actually see it on this button. So this has to do with the sizes. Go over to the width and change it to fit content so you can fit the content of 24 we set on both sides. Then for the height, fit content. All we have to do at this point is just round the corners. If you don't know how I did that, you can see this circle stuff right here. We'll be applying a style to this button, a hover style. So whenever we hover through this button, it's going to create kind of an animation. We can only do this by applying a component. So right click on the button, create component, and let's rename this to button. Then we'll be clicking this plus to choose which of the interaction that we want. Do we want it in hover state or do we want it in press state? So in this case, we want it in hover state. The hover interaction that we're going to be playing on here is going to be carried out using colors by changing this from normal fill to gradient. I think I'll also increase the weight of this text. It's too tiny. Let's go with something like medium. So whenever we hover through this, you can now see the interaction it plays here. You know what to do, Ctrl X to cut it, then paste it inside of our hero section. At this point, I shouldn't be telling you why you should always use stack to group things up. Yeah, so we are going to be grouping this text, the button and the overall stack that we grouped a while ago. So select both of them, right click and add a stack. We are applying a padding to separate the button and this overall text here. Let's go with 20 to see if this will fit. We're renaming this, but let's try to use the rename feature to see how it's going to rename these whole layers. So auto rename, let's wait a while. Didn't really do enough justice, but I think it's okay. But let's just rename this overall section to hero contents. The last thing to finish this hero section is to apply our UI design, which is this whole stuff you're seeing here. Head back to the tutorial, F on your keyboard, drag out a frame, set the weight to fill, and for the height, let's go with something like 700. Next up, we'll be applying a max width constraint to create this padding on both sides of this image. So max width here, change this to fixed, and let's reduce this a little bit. Let's go with, I think something like this will do. We'll then be applying corner radius on this frame that will house our image. So let's go with something 20. I think this is okay. To apply the image, go back to the fill, then click the last option here. This it's only to choose an image. So let me quickly change and apply this image. Yeah, correct. You already know what to do is to group this image and the overall stack right here together so we can apply a gap between this button and this image. So select the design or the image and select the overall hero content, then apply a stack to it. So right click, add a stack. For the gap, let's keep it to around 40. We're making a whole lot of progress because at this point we are literally done with the hero section. But to complete everything, to make it look complete, we're going to be applying our navbar that will stick to the top of the section. I will be creating that from scratch because I already have a video on that if you want to know how to create a responsive navbar from scratch. But to save the time, we're going to be using the one inside of Framer. So go over to the section, then go over to navigation. Yeah, so this is it. We can then choose the mode that we want it to be. We're working with a dark mode, so let's go over this to dark and choose whatever navbar that we want to roll with. Let's go with the simplest of them. Drag this and paste it inside of your design. Now this is where most people just dump their navbar and think they are done with it, and this is how they will just keep running into problems. Because when we preview this, you will notice that the navbar scrolls like every normal frame of the hero section. Now to make it stick to the top of the section, we have to apply a different approach to it by changing the type or the position of the hero section, the navbar. Go over to the type and change it from relative to fixed. The other resizing options that resemble this fixed state, which is absolute, So by changing it to absolute, it's almost the same thing right here, but we can use absolute because it won't give us what we are looking for. Absolute position helps you to place element anywhere on the parent frame. But when we preview this, though the pin right here is pinned to the top of the section, but when we preview this, you notice that it's not still sticking well to the top of the frame. This is why we always use fixed to anything navbar. In this case, everything right here is done, because when previewing this, you can now see that the hero section, I don't know what I'm renaming or calling the navbar hero section. You can now see that the navbar now sticks well to the top of the frame. We can always customize the navbar, so double click into this component and we can change the color. But to create that style I'm looking for, let's reduce the opacity to around 20. With this, we'll be applying a background blur. So whenever we hover through any of the elements on our design, it's going to look like this glassy effect. So go over to the styles and choose filter and BG blur. Let's change this to around 40 pixels or 40%. So this effect, it gives an hero section. You can now see it's giving this whole new vibe to the navbar. Now let me show you a secret to how Prose handles navigation thing in Framer. When we have other pages on our design, let me simply create a new page, or maybe create another page. This is just a case study anyway. Now if we were to design maybe an about page here or a contact page, our navigation bar will always keep copying them from the main design to paste on the new pages. Now what if I tell you that there's a whole new way we can do this without copying and pasting into new pages that we are creating? There's always a way around things in Framer. So the only way we can do that to automatically apply navbar and footers to new pages without doing them manually is to create template. Right click on the navbar and you will see layout template. Click that. So this would mainly only handle navigations and footer. So whenever we have new pages, it's going to automatically add them to those new pages. We can choose to also add footers that will appear automatically on new pages and existing page. Now let me see if there's one we can choose from already made inside of Framer. Nope. Okay, there's one. So let me just copy and paste. Now for footers, it's always fixed to the bottom of our frame, but let me zoom in for you to see what's showing here. So this is a placeholder. This means that the page content that we're going to be creating, both present and future content, will appear here. Then automatically the navbar and the footer sticks. So let's quickly redirect back, select the footer and use your arrow key to change it back to the down of the frame. But since we're working with a black theme and we are choosing a black footer, we might not really differentiate between the normal page content, though we might, but let's just keep it pronounced. Going over to the insert, navigations, let's change this to white mode and copy and paste it here. And we can simply delete the black one. So automatically our navbar and footer, which it's now at the bottom of our frame, we didn't add this manually. We had to just, you know the way we did it, to create a template that would then apply to all new pages and existing pages. Going to other new pages that we created a while ago, it's still blank, but to add this template, go to the properties and click just this template and everything will appear here. Same thing applies for this, just click the template. So yeah, I expect to use this hack to your advantage because I don't want to catch you designing like a beginner. Let's head back to our tutorial page and delete all those ones we don't want. I just remembered I didn't really talk about this text component here and how you can use them. All you have to do is just to select the font you want to use and whatever group of text you want to be displayed using this component. You can also change the text. All you have to do is just to click here, and if you feel like you want to display more than 4 words, you can simply add a new word. So this is just how you can use this component, nothing deep. So yeah, we're done with the hero section. Let's move on into the second section where we'll be applying a sticky position to create this interaction that you might have seen before. You know the drill. F on your keyboard, drag out a frame, change the width to few, and also turn it into a stack, gap to 0, distribute to start. Yeah, then for the height, let's just increase it to something like this and remove the fill color. We then apply that white frame inside of it. So F on your keyboard, drag out something like this, change the distribute to center. Then for this frame we just brought out, change the width to fill. Then for the height to fill also. The last thing to do is to apply a stack to this frame, change the gap to 0 and change the color to white because that's what we want to use. We'll be applying the padding to the overall stack, holding this frame. So top padding, let's go with 120. Right padding, let's go with 80 on both sides. Left 80 and 120 I think at the down. Next up is to apply corner radius to the white frame. Let's see how 20 will be. Yeah, this is perfect. For this text right here, it's not really an ordinary text. I applied a code component to it. So I would have simply told you to on your keyboard, bring out a text and all. But you can see the interaction that is going on this text. I applied a code component on it. All you have to do right now is to copy this code component and paste in yours. You don't really have to even touch anything. Let me just show you how it looks like. So select it, can click edit code. So this is everything that I typed out or I copied from somewhere and pasted it here to create this kind of interaction on the text that you were seeing on the main design. Yeah, so to do this, you don't really have to come here to copy or interact with any code. All you have to do is just to copy the component as a whole, head to the tutorial page and paste it right into the frame. To change the text, you can do this on the properties panel. You can see the text here. You can just change this to a framer designer. You can also change the text color of it. So if we want it to be like this color, it's not really going to be visible on this white background, but let me just show you regardless. So let me go with this. So by previewing this, you can now see the interaction on the column. So yeah, that's how you can easily use this component. We'll be applying a different approach because on the main design, we had the same type of text effect on both the head text and subtext. I realized that was too much. So let's just place an ordinary text since we already have this interaction on the head text. I'll be copying what we have on the subtext, Ctrl C, and let's paste it inside of the white frame. We then change the color because we can't see that on the white background. Then change the alignment because it's literally on a centered part. We're going to change the alignment to the left hand side. So this will then address this whole thing. We can make the subtext a bit longer. I already have one copied out somewhere. I just copied and I will just be pasting it here, Ctrl V. So this is better. On the main design, these two texts were in a vertical part. You know what to do to rearrange that, right? So select this one, the head text and the subtext, and group them in a stack. So right click, add stack, then change the direction to vertical. To create that sticky interaction, there's one thing that is left out, which is this avatar here. So let's create that aspect. Let's do this outside of the design, then we can later on add it inside of the frame. Open your keyboard to bring out an ellipse. Hold it and shift to drag out a perfect circle. So for the name of this avatar, I'm not going to waste any time on that. I'll simply copy what we have on this one, Ctrl C, head back to this place, Ctrl plus V. We then group the text and the ellipse in a stack, so select both of them, right click, add a stack. To complete this avatar, you know what to add an image, so select the ellipse, go over to this, oops, we can't simply add an image on an ellipse. We can't really add an image on an ellipse, I just found that now. So we can only add an image to a frame and not an ellipse. So bring out a frame, change both sides to 55 and apply a radius. So this is a perfect ellipse. Go back to the fill. We can then add an image to this. So Ctrl X to cut and paste it inside of our stack. Change it to this direction and delete the ellipse that we created before. Ctrl X and paste it inside of our design. Now I'll be grouping this text on the left hand side and this air clip stuff on the right hand side together. So make sure you select the complete layer and select this, right click, add a stack, then change the distribute because I want this to go to the top of the section. Change the distribute to start, and if it doesn't change to start, you shift to the next order, which is align, and change this to start also, then everything can be adjusted to the top. One last thing right here is to make sure that the height is set to fill so you can fill the frame of what we have here. Also make sure that the stack setting on the overall white frame is set to, okay, yeah, I set to distribute start. We are good to row. Then next up, we are going to be applying a padding to the top, bottom on both sides. So go back to the padding, add a padding of 40 to the top. Let's add a padding to both sides, 20 here. On the main design, you will notice this line on both sides of the avatar that is guiding it through this sticky position. Let me show you how you can create that. We are going to group this avatar section in another stack. So right click and create a stack. Now change the width right here to fit content. Then also change the height. This is where we have to create that magic to fill. So with this, let's quickly change the distribute to start and also realign it to the top. Now we have these two lines here, but it's not really there right now. This is just the outline of the stack frame. Now to add that gap or to add that line you saw, you head down to, I think, border, click this border and you can see this, but we're going to crank the opacity down to like 10%. So with this, we can now see it on both sides, but it's also at the top right here. We don't want it to be at the top, we only want it to be on both sides. Now to adjust that, go over to the border, go over to this point and cancel the one at the top, and cancel the one below. So at this point, we are left with both sides. Now this is a juicy part where I show you how to apply that sticky position to create that interaction. Don't select this, select only the avatar stacked up frame. Go over to the position right here and change it from relative to sticky. It's just that simple. So by checking this out, it's actually sticking to the top of the section, but we are having some kind of issue because the avatar is kind of sticking to the navbar. We can only address this by applying a padding to the avatar section. So head back to the sticky position. You don't have to do anything on the canvas. Let's see by adding a top padding of 100 pixels. Let's see how this will take effect. Checking this out for the second time, I think this is much more better than what we had before, but I think we have run into another issue. Whenever we get to this point, you will see that the text is more like overlapping the navbar. The navbar is supposed to supersede everything. Now let me show you how you can address this. This issue, we can address it from two aspects, through this text or through the navbar. But which one is more superior? The navbar, right? Let me now show you how you can solve this issue. To solve anything on the navbar right now, since we created a layout template, to address that, simply double click on the navbar. Now this issue is a matter of hierarchy, nothing much. So to address that, there's a thing called Z index or Z index, anyone you can call it. So Z index help us to place things in levels of hierarchy. Now I'm guessing that the level of hierarchy on that text is higher than the navbar. So checking this out, the Z index on this text is 2, while the one on our navbar is 1. You can see where our issue is coming from. So by setting a higher Z index, it's going to place the navbar in a higher hierarchy position. So change this to like 4, or let's just keep it around 3 pieces or 3 Z index. So previewing this again, you can see that issue has been resolved. Next up, I'll be showing you guys how you can apply this overall logo component here. But first, we have to extract all the logos that we are going to use. So let me simply just do that right here. So Ctrl C, Ctrl C, Ctrl C. We'll be creating the framework first before doing any other thing. So F on your keyboard, just drag a frame. To address this, let's change the direction to vertical and change the position to the bottom of the frame. After solving this issue, I'm pleased to announce that we have another issue, because the whole thing that we did right here on the sticky position supposed to be in a horizontal path, and now that we change it to vertical path, everything has been disrupted. Let's find how we can readjust things without changing the direction, because we actually need this whole section to be in a vertical path to keep this framework here. Now let's think. We are going to be grouping this overall avatar section and the overall text above, then we can readjust their direction. So select both and group them in a stack. So right click, add a stack. Then let's see if this works. Changing the gap. Yeah, I think it did. By changing the gap to horizontal. All we have to do from here is just to finish it up by setting the width from fit content to fill content. Yeah, I think it's back to normal. And just remember that I didn't add a bottom padding to this white frame. So let's do that, but I'll be using 10 pixels here. And change this from width fix to width fill. And change the color to black. Then round the corners to around 16. So since we use 20 at the outer side, let's use 16 for inside. I think this will be okay. To make this even, let's just put this to 20. Yeah, I think this is better. We have created a framework for our logo stuff to stay in. Let's change this into a stack. I will be creating a component. Right click, create component. Let's change this to logo. I'll be pasting the logo I copied from the main design. To create that hover interaction, we're going to be using this component called is on interactive called ticker. So just simply drag and drop. I'll be changing the width to fill and changing the height to, I think, fill. I don't know what I'm guessing to think about this. I'll be placing the logo inside. Select all the logos here and place them inside of, make sure it's inside of the ticker component, this thing called ticker. So Ctrl+V, then you delete all these placeholders inside of the ticker component. You can copy this as many times you want. So by previewing this, you can see it took us less than 1 minute to arrange this whole thing, but the logos are looking kind of close. We can apply a padding to that. So go over to the ticker component and let's add a padding of let's say 20 will be. After so much back and forth, this is what we get just by using the ticker component from the insert menu. We're moving to the third section. We'll be expanding what we have learned about sticky position to fix those cards. So these are the cards and the animation that we're going to be creating just by using only sticky positioning. After we're done, we then focus on how to create this progress bar when we are scrolling through this section. Let's jump right into it. To our page. The first thing to do is to bring out a frame. F on your keyboard, you know the drill, drag a frame, set the width right here to fill. Then for the height, let's just leave it at this point. Later on we can just change it to fit content depending on the content size inside of the frame. Turn it to a stack, set the distribute to start and the gap to 0. The last thing is to remove the fill column. We'll be starting with the text here. There's one on this section. So let's just copy the content, Ctrl+C, select a text, and we'll just paste this. I don't know why these texts are appearing big. I don't just know why, but we can link them back to the styles we created before we started designing. Go back to styles and let's use that of this heading too. Perfect. For the second one, I would not want to create a second line to create this text. Let's just join it. Then we then use constraints to fold it into another line. Copy the content, Ctrl+C, head to the tutorial, and paste it to the same text that we just brought out. Ctrl+V. To make things responsive on this text, set it to fill width, then we'll add a constraint max width. Change it from relative to fixed, from relative to fixed, then reduce the size till we are satisfied. Let's go one more. Okay, I think this is perfect. Looking at the one that we have here, you can see that there are two variations. One is a bit lighter than the other. We can also do that. All you have to do is just to highlight the one you want to change the color, go over to the color aspect and reduce the opacity to around 80%. Well, let's just reduce it to 60. Next up is to apply our subtext, which is this. Copy the content, head to the tutorial, bring out a text and paste it. There again, we're having this issue. We'll link it back to a style, go over to this body too, and that's what we'll be selecting. Perfect. Change it to width fill to make it responsive. Then for the alignment, you can see it's aligning to the center. We want it to align to the left hand side. Go over to the properties, down the text section, and change the alignment to the left. The last thing to do is to group these two texts together. So select both, use the shortcut to turn it into a stack, which is Ctrl plus Alt plus Enter. For the distribute within these two texts, I want it to be spaced evenly. We can change it from space between or space evenly. There's even a thing called space evenly here. It's almost the same thing as space between anyone. But you can see our subtext, it's not really folding the way we want. You know what to add? A max width constraint. Go over here, change it from relative to fixed, then reduce the size. Perfect. Something like this will do. The next thing here is to change the direction of this text from center to the top of the layout. So select the overall frame, go over to the stack. It's already on distribute start. You know the second line to go is align. Set it to start, and yeah, I think we're done here. One thing here is to apply padding on this text. So select the text stack, go over to padding, apply a padding of 80 on the left. Do the same for the right hand side, 80 on the right hand side. I know you might be asking why we didn't apply this padding on the overall layout. The reason for that is the cards that we're going to be applying, they are going to be filling the width of this desktop. And if we were to change the overall to 80 pixels on both sides, our cards are going to follow the same path of the way these texts are. It won't fill the full section. That is why I have to change where it's needed, which is only on the text, to 80 on the left and 80 on the right. We'll be creating our cards, bring out a frame, set this to width fill. The direction where we want these cards to be is in a vertical plane, but the direction of the overall layout is on the horizontal. We can correct that by going to the overall section or overall layout and change the direction to vertical. Shift this down. I'll be turning this card or frame into a layout, which is also called a stack. Set distribute to start and gap to 0. The second thing is to change the color, because I use a gradient color on this one. Let me just copy the color code I use here and paste it on ours. Go over to the fill, change it to a gradient fill, and paste the one I just copied. Then for the other one, it's black. Just turn it down like this. Now let's think about how we can assemble all the elements inside of it. Without wasting time, these are just text, normal text styles, and images that are here. So we are just going to be assembling them from this main design to ours. Then the only thing we're going to be fixing is rearranging them in a stack. For the first one, Ctrl C, paste it inside of the card, Ctrl V. Then for the second one, which is this text, Ctrl C here. Then we paste it inside of this. Then for the other one, this is just that text component that I showed you guys before. So Ctrl C and we paste. The last thing here is that image. We can just bring that out here. Just bring a frame and expand it a little bit like this. I'll be applying an image on this frame. With this, I think all the content are complete. Let's look for how we can stack them up in the right direction. This text goes along with this one, look at it on the main design, it's on the vertical plane. Let's use our arrow key to change it to the direction of the left. Same thing applies for this two goes along and this two goes along. It will not be easy for us to then group them in a stack. Let's start with this text, select both of them, Ctrl plus Alt plus Enter, then do the same for the other one, Ctrl plus Alt plus Enter, and change the direction to vertical. It's supposed to be aligned to the left. You can change that to left. For this text stack, we can change the distribute from center to space between. I will then move over to add padding to the right hand side of this text frame. Go over to the padding and add a padding of 60 pixels to this. I just wanted to separate these two sections apart. I will change the direction to align to the top, but we have just one problem. I want this text to remain at the same line with this number, just because the size of this is larger than, that's why we have this space right here. Now to match it up, I'm going to wrap this text in a stack, Ctrl plus Alt plus Enter, set the width to fit content, then for the height set it to fill. I'll change the distribute from center to start, then align it to the top. This then allows us, this wrapping of this stack to this text allows us to now add top padding to this text. We can add a padding of like 40 to match it to the same height of this number. We can also add to it, let me just increase it. I think something like this is matching up well. For the height of this text content, I will change it from fixed to fill. You know what that does? It fills the height of our section. This text stack, we need padding because this figure is kind of touching the left hand side of our frame. I think this is the only side I will need padding, but anything we apply here, we also have to apply to the right hand side. So I'll select the overall frame and apply a padding of just 20 pixels to the left and 20 pixels to the right hand side. Now this is something I didn't really do on mine, but this image is looking weird with the way it's half filling this frame. So we're going to change it from width fixed to fill. This is one of the reasons why we have to just keep designing, because what we looked at first might look good, but looking at it again will give us better idea to what we best fit that element. Because on the home page, the main one, I didn't really take notice of it could look better if the width is set to fill. Yeah, I only found that out just by redesigning this one I'm showing you guys on this tutorial page. Let me just return this one back to the way it is. We have completed our card section. Let's auto rename this. Just wait. Not really doing enough justice, so I will just rename this to card section. For this card section, we are going to turn it into a component so we can use it for other cards that we're going to create. So instead of starting from a blank canvas or a blank frame to create the rest cards, to create this sticky interaction, we just use components to skip that process. Let me show you how you can do that. Right click to create a component. On the component page, this is where we set variables that will allow us to reuse this card for other instances. To select the first one, which is a number, go over to the content and click the plus. I'll be creating a plain text variable. Just click this. It has already renamed it for us. If you want to refine the name, you can just do that. Cool. For this second one, do the same thing. Go over to the properties, turn it into a plain text variable. I'll do the same for this other one. Go over to the content where you have this plus, click variable. Yep. And for this one, since it's an image, we're going to turn it into an image variable. You then go over to where you have the fill, click the plus, create variable. In this case, it's not going to be color but image variable. So this is everything we have to do about this component. Now to see those component variables that we set on the component page, let me show you how you can use them. We'll be making a copy of this card. This is going to stand as the second one. Now instead of changing all this manually from the canvas, we can now handle that from the properties panel with the variable we set. Now for the amount, this is going to be 2 and this one here is going to be 1. The first card is 1. Same thing applies for this text right here. We can change that. I already have one copied out, so I'll just paste it into it, and you see we didn't even touch the canvas. We are just managing things from the properties panel. Then for the image, I'll be changing that. So go over to choose an image. Let me just roll with this. We'll then make a copy for the last card, where you can see the height of the frame is not really hitting these cards. To fix that, you head over to the overall section that is limiting the growth. I think it's this, yeah, and set the height. As you can see, is set to fixed. I'm going to change that from fixed to fit content, and this problem is solved. For this last one, we're going to change it to amount free. Then for this tag, we can change it to innovation. Then I'll be changing the image. I don't want it to look like what we have before. So yeah, we're done refining these cards. We are going to leave a padding or a gap to separate this text from these cards. Select the overall section and add a padding of like 20, or let's just leave it at 40. Now these 40 pieces we applied were just to separate this text and this cards. I wouldn't want these 40 pieces to affect this card. Now to change that, I will then group the cards together. So select all the cards that we have here, the last one, and group them in a stack. So Ctrl plus Alt plus Enter. So yeah, these 10 pieces is what I want to fix on these cards, not 40 pieces. So if you come across this kind of situation where the gapping system that you want to give is different from another section inside of the section, if this makes sense, you just group that whole part in a stack, then you give and refine the gap within it. And let's preview this to see what our cards look like. Though we have not added the sticky position, you can see it's really flat. Let's undo that. I'll select the first card, go over to the properties and change it to sticky. Do the same for the second one, from relative to sticky, and from relative right here to sticky. Now checking this out again, the cards are kind of taking shape, but we can refine this by applying a top padding to it. To select the first card, I will choose a top padding of 60 here. Do the same thing for the second 60 pixels and apply a top one of 60 to the last one. Let's check out the difference here. Now this is a lot better than what we had before. Now to turn this card or this sticky stuff we are doing into a pro level, let's apply an interaction by using a trigger. Now the trigger that we are going to be applying is when this second card comes into the section, this first card kind of darken to introduce the second card, and same thing applies for the third card. When it comes in, the second card gives this dark effect to separate it and introduce the third card. Now let's handle that. To do that, we have to step in into the card component. I'll be bringing out a frame. Just select a frame and just drag it out here, Ctrl X, and paste it inside of the frame. I'll turn this into an absolute position and pin all sides to 0. 0 at the top, then for the left 0, and for the bottom 0. I'll rename this as trigger. I will then change the color from white to black. This trigger I brought out is supposed to cover this full card. Now you can see this text hanging out here. I've showed you guys this example when we have to play with Zindex. So let's see how we can apply Zindex to make this card supersede everything else on this card. Go over to the properties. Zindex is already out, just increase the value and that is solved. Now let's leave this right here and head back to the tutorial page. First, to create that interaction I just explained on the preview page, we have to utilize a thing called screw sections. So these screw sections will now act as a trigger to activate this black frame that is covering this card. Now to do that, select the second frame because this is where the interaction is going to be starting from, not the first card. So select the second frame, go over to the properties, and down here you see screw section. I'll name this as card 2, and for the last card I'll rename this as card 3. With this, let's now continue what we're doing behind the components page. So double click, and for the trigger, this is where we have to apply that interaction. Go over to the properties, go over to effect, Now the frame we're going to be applying is called screw transform. So select that. Let me just raise it up here. Now the trigger that we are going to be using is called section in view. Now this section in view are those screw sections that we brought out on those cards. So when we apply these sections in view, it didn't activate this animation. We are going to apply a variable for the section in view, so just click this, create variable. You don't have to do anything here, just leave it like that. Now this is where the magic happens, from the from state and to the to state. Selecting the from state, I will set the opacity to 0 and the scale to 1. Let's just do that. And for the to state, we don't have to touch anything here. It's okay like this. I'll simply add a transition. Just click that to just apply a smooth transition to it. After all these settings, let's head back to the tutorial page to complete this animation. If you look on the properties panel, you will see a new variable called screw section. This is a variable that I created while creating that effect behind the component bar. I'm going to click it, and for this, we want this animation to activate when the card 2 comes into the frame. So I'm going to select card 2. For the second frame, I'm going to select that, and it's going to be when the card 3 comes into the frame, then the animation that we set on the component plays. So select card 3. Now for this last card, since there's no extra card to activate that effect we tied, we are going to remove this black stuff covering it. Now how do we do that without it affecting the rest card at the top? Because remember, this is a component, whatever we do on one applies to all. Now to do that, we apply a component variable for this trigger. So select the trigger, go over to the properties, and I'll be creating a variable for the visibility. So click that, create variable. Now we have a new variable called visible. This is where we then switch this off to no. Let's test out what we just did if we have not wasted our time. So yeah, this interaction that I was explaining, when the second card comes into the section, the first card, which is no more relevant, begins to create that darken effect or dark frame, or whatever you can call it. Same thing applies for the third one. When the third frame is coming into the section, the second card begins to fade out. So guys, we are done with this section. Next up is to focus on that progress bar. I did that to the code component from the main design, going over to the layers. I think I applied it here. You can see the code component I used. This is everything to achieve that. I'll make a copy of this so we can use it to recreate ours. Ctrl C. We'll be starting with the framework. So bring out a frame, F on your keyboard, and just drag out anything like this. For the height of this frame, we'll be using 2 pixels. But when we do that, you see it to be hard for us to do anything reasonable just because the frame is so tiny. Let's return back the height of it. Then when we are done applying all these things, we'll return it back to 2 pixels. Cool. I'll be setting a layout, which is also called a stack. Set the distribute to start and change the gap to 0. I'll be moving the fill color, and on the layers panel, let's rename this to progress bar. We'll be bringing out another frame inside of it. This is going to stand as the progress bar. Change the width right here to relative, and for the height, change it to fixed. We'll then change the color of this progress bar. Go over to the fill, choose a gradient, and change the direction to something like this. Change the color to white, change it to white here. Then for this other end, I think this is it, we have to darken the color a bit. So yeah, this is everything you need to set up that progress bar. Now that we are done, let's change this back to 2 pixels. We'll be cutting this to paste it inside of our design. So go over to the top, select the desktop, Ctrl+V. Just the same way you added that navigation is the same way we apply this progress bar. Change the direction to the top of the frame. Let's zoom in. For the position, I'll change this from relative to fixed. Now the height of this nav bar is more like 60 pixels or thereabout. Let me check it out. Yeah, it's 64 pixels. Let's head back to the tutorial page, select the progress bar, and we are going to apply a top pin of like 65 pixels. I would also be pinning the left hand side and change, let's reduce this down to around -20, then pin the right hand side to 0 pixels. Use everything. Then for the frame inside of it, because we don't want this progress bar to activate now, so for the frame inside of it, we are going to change the relative to 1%. Cool. To finish things up, this is where we add that code component we copied. So select the frame within the progress bar, go over to the properties, click this code overwrite. I'll be clicking this example and creating a new file. Let's rename this as tutorial progress. When you click create, this is the default code that pops up. We're not going to be using this. Let's just remove everything back and paste that code component we copied from the main design. So if you want to access this, if we can't paste, we can't simply paste because it's been a long time we copied that code component. Let's head back to the home page, edit code. Let's just copy everything, Ctrl+C. Now we have to start over again by creating a new file, and let's rename this as tutorial progress. You know the drill, remove this one, delete it, and paste the new code component. Now all these links and code components have been shared since when we started this tutorial are going to be available through the remix link that will be in the description of this video. So check that out if you are looking for this code component. After you have pasted the code, we are going to save it by hitting Ctrl+S, go over to the code overwrite. We're going to see the new file we created, which is tutorial progress. After that, for the code overwrite, you are going to select with progress. Now for us to use this progress bar, we have to create a starting point and an end point, because from the main design you can see the code component is not activated here. It only activates when we get to where we want it to show, which is this card. So this is going to be our starting point, the overall section of this card that we just created. Select it, go over to the scroll section and click that. I'll rename this as start. Then for the endpoint, since we don't have a frame after this card section, let's just copy this one, Ctrl+D, and change the direction. I will then delete the content inside of this section, but you can leave it. It doesn't have anything tied to what we are going to do. So hit enter and I'll be deleting the content. Then we are simply going to be adding a scroll section called end. With this, let's check out the progress bar to see if it's actually working. And this is supposed to be the starting point, and it's obviously not still working. But when we get to the end of this card, you can see that the progress bar worked, but where it's supposed to start, it's not really working as it should. But on this point, you can see that the progress bar is kind of coming out. But when we come close to this card, the progress bar just disappears. Now, if this is linking to one thing, it should be Zindex, which plays a hierarchy thing. So select the progress bar. Let's go to the top. I guess this is Zindex problem. So select the Zindex of the progress bar and let's raise the bar to around 4 pixels. Let's check this out again, and yeah, it's working perfectly now. This is one way we can solve problem, because everything doesn't have to be win-win-win. There must always be a problem in between our lines, and we have to solve it as designers. So yeah, we're done with this design. It took us a whole lot of time to get to this point. Next up, we're moving into full optimization to make sure that these 2 breakpoints here are ready to go. This shouldn't even waste a lot of time because we make sure we have utilized stack throughout this design. I'll be optimizing both breakpoints simultaneously. Let's start with the mobile breakpoint. The navigation bar here doesn't belong to a mobile frame. Double click into the template we created for the navigation and add a breakpoint for both tablet and for the phone. Automatically, with the template we copied from the insert menu, the navigation template, the one for the mobile frame automatically adds to the mobile breakpoint. But in case if you don't see this pops up, click it, head to the properties panel, and you can switch from the desktop view to the mobile phone view. Next up, we'll be adding padding to this hero section. If you look here, you will see that these elements are kind of touching both ends of our design, this is not responsive. So select the hero section, go over to the padding, and to the right, apply 20 pixels there, and to the left, do the same thing, 20 pixels here. Previewing the mobile breakpoint, you will notice something, that this text effect is not really optimizing well with this modern text on the same line. We can break things down. Head back to the canvas, and for this we are going to change the path nesting into the frame, change the path here to vertical, and reduce the padding. It's way better this way than having this whole text stuff in a horizontal path, because this modern text was kind of going outside of the frame. So yeah, let's move on. For this design, it's not really flowing the way I want it to be. On the main design, you can see it's more like overflowing to the right hand side. Head back to tutorial page. I'll first reduce the height of it to around let's go with 503. Then because of this overflowing effect to the right hand side, we have to change the overflow from clip to visible. We're not yet done. We're going to increase the fill value here from 1 to 2. Select the overall frame. I think this should be the content, the hero content frame. Select it and change the alignment to start. Then everything can now overflow to the right hand side, just like how we have it on the main design. Now there's an effect on this design. Let me show you this if you guys noticed. So previewing it from the main large text hub, when we are hovering through or when we are scrolling through this hero section, you can see that this design, it's more like hovering in when we are making a scroll. Now let's handle that. On the one we designed, this is what it looks like. There's no animation tied to this design. Let's make it more fun. So select the design or frame, head to the properties, and we'll be applying an effect. We'll be going with scroll transform. Let's raise this up here. For the trigger, it's not going to be on scroll, it's going to be layer in view. From the from state, it's going to be opacity 1, and let's first turn the scale to 1, then we can reduce it to like 0.9. Yeah, something like this is okay. We want it to tilt backward when layering in view. So rotate, for the rotate is going to be not 2D but 3D. Increase the value here to 20, and for the offset it's going to be let's keep it around 80 pixels. Explaining this effect, when this frame is coming into the layer of the hero section, it will tilt backwards 20 pixels and offset downward 80 pixels. So it's going to come from the bottom of the frame, 80 pixels to the top, then tilt backward to the X value. Now it's not really giving that perfect 3D effect, because it's going to, from the one we did here, you can see the effect it's giving from the from state. It's giving a very perfect 3D vibe, but with this is same value I applied here, same value. Okay, this one is minus 80. It doesn't really mean, but let's just change that to minus 80. With this, it's not really still giving that perfect 3D, just like how we have it here from the from state. To turn this into this perfect 3D, just like the reference, we are going to be applying two values. One is rotate and the other one is perspective. Cancel this, not really cancel, just exit from the effect, go over to the transform on the properties and click rotate, and we'll be applying another value called perspective. Yeah, so change this to 1000. You can leave it at 1200, but I just love leaving it the perspective at 1000 so it doesn't create that much depth. Go back to the effect, scroll transform from the from state, and voila, you can see that this whole stuff has been solved. I think that's what we have to do, because from the from state it's just the default that we're going to roll with. The next thing we are going to do right here is to apply a transition just to smoothen things out. Previewing this, you can see that that animation that is on the main design, it's now appearing in real time on our own design. Let's check out the one for the mobile breakpoint. Yeah, it's really playing up nicely. But I'll be reducing the offset because it's kind of reaching this end of this button. Let's reduce the offset of that minus 80 that we set. So select the effect, go over to the from state and reduce the offset. Sorry, yeah, reduce the offset, not increase. 34 is okay. Now this should work. Yeah. Let's now turn to the tablet. We'll be doing the same thing that we set on the mobile breakpoint to the tablet, nothing attached. For this, we are going to reduce this to around 500. Yeah. Then we'll apply a padding to the hero section, 40 pixels to the left and 40 to the right hand side. I think that's everything we have to do on this tablet view. Let's move on into the second section, which is this. We'll first change the padding from 80 here to 20 on both sides. Because we use Stack, that's why we are finding it very easy to optimize this. I bet you if I didn't teach you guys anything about Stack, we'll be finding it very, very difficult to optimize this mobile breakpoint. Nesting into this section, you can see that this part, it's not really accommodating it on the horizontal part. This section is this highlighted part you are seeing here on the tablet. It's okay on this tablet view, but coming to the mobile frame, you can see the direction set to horizontal is not really accommodating this element. Let's change the direction from horizontal to vertical, and I think that is everything we have to do here. Remember that we set sticky position to this avatar section. Now, not all effects that we place on the tablet should apply to the mobile breakpoint just because it's a small frame. We'll be removing the sticky effect because there's no space for this sticky effect to play. So select the avatar and change this from sticky to relative. Zooming into this, we are also going to be removing this outline that we created on this avatar. So select the frame, move out to the border and just remove it from there. Then set the width from fit content to fill. Then one last thing is to apply space to separate these two sections together. Let's go with 20 pixels. We can do better. Let's just double this up to 40 pixels. For the height of this avatar section, I'm going to change it from width to fit content so we don't have this white space here. Do that, head to the properties, change it from fill to fit content. I would also do the same for the overall frame, wrapping all this text together. Change it from fill here to fit content. Yeah, I think we're making a whole lot of progress. Now for the frame padding of this white frame, because it's a mobile breakpoint, I'll be reducing that to around 10 to the left and 10 to the right, and also 10 to the bottom, and let's just keep it at 20 to the top. Yeah, we still have this white space here that we would not want. Select the white frame now, which is the one controlling the padding at this point. Select it, I think it's this one, and change it from width fill here to fit content. And yeah, everything has been optimized. Then for the padding, we use 120 on the desktop, and using 120 on the mobile breakpoint still feels plenty or big. We're going to reduce that to 80 pixels. I think this should do. Yeah, perfect. We'll do the same for the bottom padding, change it to 80. Let's look at the mobile breakpoint if there's anything we have to address here. If there's one, it should be the padding, because I'm using a padding of 40 to the left and 40 to the right on the tablet, while 80 to the desktop. So let's reduce this to around 40 here and 40 to the left. One last thing is to change the overall layout from fixed to fit content. Moving on, we can't just leave this text like this. Let's optimize it. Select the text stack and change the direction, this from horizontal to vertical, then align it to the left. Remember we set a padding on both sides 80-80, let's change that to 20-20. Then for the space, it's set to space between, we would not want that now, let's change it to center and apply a gap of 20 to it. Moving into the card section, the only visible part is this last card. You know the reason why we had to black out all this, just for that trigger effect on the card. How do we now optimize this? Because we can't really handle that. There's no value here to handle the optimization on this mobile breakpoint. And nesting deeper, maybe to select an element to redirect the path, it will lead us into the component page. So how do we handle this? So a quick one, we'll be creating another variant specifically for the mobile frame, because anything we do right here will affect all the cards, both from the desktop down to the mobile. So select the overall card and you will see these two options. This one here is to create an interaction and this one here is to create a variant. This is what we'll be going for. Just click that. To optimize this, we have to remove this trigger frame that is covering the content behind it. Select the trigger, go over to the variable where we set that visibility and change the default to no. When we are done with this process, we can then change everything back to how it was. For this second frame, we'll be starting with the width, because on the mobile breakpoint, the width of this section, changing it to fixed state, is 390. This is what we'll be working with. Next into the component, select the second variant here and change it from width 1200 to 390. So this is our starting point for the mobile breakpoint. The first thing to do is to change the direction from horizontal to vertical. We cannot really see that text stack. So for us to do that, we change it from height fixed to fit content. This is for the overall frame I just changed to fit content. So this is section I'm referring to. I can't see this even when we have changed it, the overall card to fit content. And selecting the card section, the text section, on the properties menu, you can see that the height is just set to 1 pixels. This is the 1 pixels you are seeing at the top of the section. Change that from fixed state to fit content. And yeah, this should solve itself. I'm still looking for this smaller text, which is not here. So let's look for how we can handle that. I can see the outline whenever we hover through this section, but we cannot visibly see that text. Select the overall section, head on to the properties and change it from fixed state to fit content, and that should be solved. Remember, we set a padding of 60 pixels to the right hand side. Change that from 60 to 20. The last thing to do here is to apply a bottom padding of like 20 pixels to the top of this section so they can be spaced after this image. So do that, select and change this to 20 pixels here. We'll rename this from variant 2 to mobile frame. We then head back to the tutorial page. To apply this new variant we added, select the text, go over to the properties, and for the variant, this is variant 1 for the overall desktop, and this is the new frame, mobile frame we just renamed. Select that, and that should apply. Do the same for the second one, mobile frame, and do the same for the last one, mobile frame. So yeah, this is how we just optimize things. If it's a component, head into the component page and create a new variant for that breakpoint. Let's return the black frame that we set on the trigger frame, to change the visibility now from optional yes, to default yes. Let's preview everything we just did. So the hero section is good. This second section is also nice. Now this is the card that we just optimized, and you see it's playing up perfectly. Yeah, let's look at the tablet view to check if it's okay to roll, and I think it's perfect. Yeah, it's good, because this tablet view is more like the main desktop, just that it's a little bit smaller. So yeah, we're done with the full optimization. Everything looks perfect on all 3 breakpoints. Viewing this from the desktop, if we should reduce this, you can see everything is perfectly responsive. To finish things up, because we are literally done, we'll be applying micro interactions to this text. So whenever we preview this, there should be an animation that should play out and introduce this text. So select the first one, go over to effect, and we'll be selecting this text effect. Let's just see. By default, this is what it looks like. You can see the new animation that plays when we reload this page. We can do that for the second one. Just select it, go over to effect, text. I'll do the same for this one. We can't really apply that text effect because it's not really a text, it's a text component. So this is where we can find our value of this text effect that we applied on this other text. But we can just leave it like this because introducing it, previewing this, it already has its own animation of displaying this typewriting effect. So this just introduces a new vibe when we reload the page. Let's head on to create the same effect for the subtext. Select the text, go back to effect, text effect. Now I wouldn't want it to appear at the same time that this head text were introduced. So I'm going to delay it a little bit by let's just say for 0.5. So let's just see. So yeah, this is what I want, but we can just reduce it the delay to like 0.4. So this is perfect. So this is one way you can apply micro interactions to make your site stand out whenever you refresh your browser. We are done with this tutorial, and I can't really point out what we have really learned because we have learned a whole lot, from setting up your account to getting you comfortable with Figma to show you the canvas. I mean, I've exhausted myself to explain things down just so that you can understand. Drop a comment in the comment section for me to say that you finished this tutorial to this point. If you love explanatory videos like this and you want to see more on your feed, just subscribe and turn on that notification bell. Keep designing, and see you guys in the next tutorial.